What's up, guys? It's Ron from Ron Rohde Law. And in this video, we're sitting down with the founders of Rig Hut. And this is an automated remote truck parking management service. And so if you're interested in iOS or specifically managed truck parking, you're going to want to watch this interview as they talk about the challenges and some of the benefits of using this managed truck parking. So Jake, Jose, awesome to have you guys back.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
be here, Ron. Thanks for having us again.
So, Jake, bring us up to speed because I had you on the channel about a year ago. You guys were getting out there. I mean, you already had an incredible size portfolio already, but in the last year, what are you guys up to in terms of yards and parking spaces?
Yeah, so I mean, we've grown a fair bit since the last time that you and I did the podcast. It's getting a little difficult to quantify the different metrics, but in total in the system, we've probably got somewhere close to 20,000 parking spaces, just over 200 individual facilities. There's, thousands of unique driver accounts. Some are active, some are inactive. But in terms of, live, paying registered driver accounts, I think this month we're just over, 5,000 individual transactions. So
That's amazing.
somewhere around 15, 18,000 parking spaces paid for through RigHut this month.
That's it's amazing. I think you guys are really doing a killer job, and I'm glad to have been there, kind of on the ground floor. But Jose, I guess tell us a little bit more about the market. I mean, why is this such a exciting new asset class and an easy way for investors to make money?
It's kind of a little bit about what we were talking about earlier. Before a lot of the original guys that were doing this were in the transportation industry, right? They had space to park their own fleet or their own trucks, and they also allowed third-party drivers to come and park. Meanwhile, but now, fast forward, it's becoming much more popularized, mainly because of the actual need for space to park trucks in major metro areas and industrial, infill locations like South Florida, where we started, North New Jersey, where we quickly started getting a presence there, and real estate investors, and I'm sure guys who you work with, Ron, started noticing that while they may have 10 industrial properties, two of those sort of welcome this sort of business model, right? Because it connects to a lot of the tenancy that they bring in. And so more and more people are realizing, look, this is a business model that can be capitalized on. There's a need. Um, and now more and more, ways to do it, effectively with guys like Rig Hut. There's different marketplaces, there's different technology solutions. So, more and more people are welcoming and open to the business model, and we're happy about it because people are talking about it.
No, I think that's true. I mean, everything as the economy has grown, there's been more trucks. I love, this is a statistic. It's probably a few years, 3 million registered trucks and trailers on the road, and only 300,000 paid parking spaces exist. It's just an incredible supply and demand problem. But um, I guess tell us a little bit more about the yards. What's an average size? How many acres? What's the surface type? Just give us a prototypical or a best case yard. What does it look like?
I'd say if you took an average of the facilities that use Rig Hut, it's probably somewhere in like the 4 to 6 acre neighborhood. But it's not really, size really isn't a constraint, right? It's more, are you in the appropriate market? Are you appropriately zoned, right? Like what happens with the smaller facilities is usually they just get scooped up by a single tenant, right? If you're under 2 acres, usually, you might start with managed parking, but someone's going to come in there and say, hey, I'll take half the yard or I'll take the full yard, usually. And then on the other side of the coin, there's yards that are over 100 acres, right, with full service sort of diesel lanes, trailer repair and leasing, mechanic shop, truck wash, the whole nine. And so size, I wouldn't say is really a constraint once you get over like an acre. Um, Generally 4 to 6 is what I would say if I picked an average.
Okay. How about surface type or improvements?
Super variable again. Market specific, right? Like if you take South Florida where the supply demand, curve is completely out of whack, right? There's way more drivers looking for parking than there is supply of parking spaces. you could get away with pretty much whatever you want. There's going to be some function as to how much you're going to be able to command in rent. Recently, most new yards are going with some sort of compacted aggregate surface over asphalt or concrete, just due to cost. I don't have updated metrics on differences in cost, but it's substantial. Like last time I checked, I think we were at $50,000 an acre for an asphalt facility down here in South Florida, whereas you could get away with a fraction of that if you're going with asphalt millings, especially if there's like a recent project and it's just readily available. Sometimes these guys are just giving away the millings, right? So new yards mostly aggregate, and the really really high quality facilities tend to still be asphalt or concrete.
Awesome. Okay. So size of the yard, it's just a function. I'm trying to give an idea of, if you're a new investor and you want to acquire or develop one of these facilities, you don't need to spend the money for paving. You can be kind of this class B. And this is fully tooting my own horn. I posted on Twitter, like kind of this class A, B, and C. And you guys kind of said, yeah, that can kind of work. But I'm just trying to create some type of standard. So the upfront cost is not too significant. What you're really paying for is the land. And as you noted, this is real estate. Doesn't matter if you can get the land cheap, but you're outside of the metro, or you're in the ETJ in Texas, outside in the county. Um, doesn't matter. You want to have high quality real estate.
That's correct. Like anything else, the only thing in real estate, the only thing that you can't change is the location.
That's right. That's right. Jose, so maybe you can tell us a little bit more, like what are some common challenges? You guys probably have thousands of complaints. What are the most common? What's the top three issues for drivers?
Yeah, common challenge. Before I mentioned the common challenges, I want to say probably the common quote unquote amenities that a lot of these facilities probably at the minimum should or need to have, right? Because you could be in a great area, but again, as Jake mentioned, if the market is showing there's other yards there with asphalt, with high security, with fencing, with lighting, it doesn't matter. You're going to probably lose to those better offerings. And across the board, I would just say yards definitely you need to have a high powered fence. It needs to be a well lit area. There needs to be some cameras. Because this is a product at the end of the day to the people that you're renting it to, and truck drivers, fleets, and transportation companies. They value where they're going to store their assets. So you need to have all that stuff for sure. And then after that, the common problems still do come up, and we see that. General things are they're running into the gate. Maybe someone is parked in the wrong spot. Maybe a light is was hit in the back, and people don't know where you could see where you're parking in the back corner. So general things are just sort of the boots in the ground potential work, but a lot of that can be minimized with some technology.
Okay, maybe can we dig into that a little bit more? Standard fencing. You say high security fencing. 6 foot, 8 foot chain link. Is that okay?
Yeah, I
Three
mean, I would
strand
say
bar. Are we doing single loop
I would
barbed
just try
wire,
to prevent
razor
anyone
wire?
from. Yeah, you should just try to prevent anyone from just jumping over for one. That's the main thing. But you want to more than anything kind of just present to the market or to your potential drivers that are parking there that this is a well maintained yard and not one that is ignored or overlooked. Because as in anything, you want to present yourself that this is a product you're putting out to the market, right? As a yard, and you want to show that you care for what you're offering. You understand that the drivers need to park there, that this is something that they're paying for, and that will welcome more and more drivers to go there. And also, by word of mouth, more people will want to park at your yard. So you need to present yourself that you are well securitized, that you have these minimal amenities. That's for sure.
Okay, so you're really not even opining on 8 foot, black coated, three strand bar. You don't need that. You're saying the most important element is maybe that it's new and well maintained. So it could be 6 foot with no barbed wire as long as it looks secure and is whole without any stretching or holes in the fence.
Yeah, so dive a little deeper on like specifics related to these amenities. What we always say, especially to new guys that are looking to get into the business, is obviously the real estate is the most important part of the equation. We already discussed that, right? If you have it, unless you're going from completely raw land that you need to entitle and fill and do drainage and all that jazz, what we say is kind of do the bare minimum to
Mm.
test the market, unless you're sure, right? Unless you are 100% sure or very close to 100%. So 6 foot, 8 feet. My answer to that is probably doesn't matter. If the guy wants to take, some clippers and cut through the fence, he's going to get through it, whether it's 6 or 8 feet. So there's some things that you just can't mitigate against, right? But you can sort of protect with things like cameras, or you can have some sort of infrastructure in terms of on the ground labor if you do need someone to go by for any particular reason. It's not, we try not to overcomplicate it, right? So put up a fence. It doesn't matter, 6, 8 feet, barbed wire, no barbed wire. If you don't want to, if you're not sure, don't invest in a mechanized gate necessarily, right? But maybe you're local, so you can go with a manual gate and a combination lock as long as you have some sort of, presence there. If you don't want to make the investment yet, test the market, see if you're getting some traffic in the facility, and then go. We always say kind of go with where the market is pulling you. So for whatever reason, some yards get a lot more monthly activity. Some yards, it could be a mile down the road, get a lot more daily activity. Some guys will get a bunch of trailer drop business. Some guys will get, traditional managed parking business. So just, create that parkable surface, run some marketing, and just go wherever the market's taking you.
That's a great point. I appreciate that because I think too often we get caught in over analyzing the numbers and a budget and thinking that comparing the numbers really makes a difference when the market might be pushing you towards this type of product. And again, top rail, kick rail, this could mean the difference. Obviously, if there's city ordinance or code compliance issues on opaque fencing, you might need to do R panel. But don't spend extra money unless you are required. So that's probably what you mean. Do the minimum as required by city. But if that's 6 foot chain link, just get it out there, and test the market. Because would you say that there is a difference in requirements for like a drop and hook versus monthly parkers?
The short answer is yes. So the drop and hook or like depot style facilities are a lot more intense in terms of traffic and variability of who's supposed to be in your facility. So you're
Okay.
you're either going to need to supplement with infrastructure in terms of staff, right? Like a lot of the depot facilities that we work with still like to have a person in the guard gate just in case there's some discrepancy. They originally sent Jake in the system to pick up the trailer, but something happened with Jake. So now they got to send, Jose, but that wasn't recorded, right? So you still need a little bit of that. We're coming out with some solutions that will be able to automate that as well. Hopefully by the summer. I won't get into specifics on how that's going to work just yet. But we think we'll be able to eliminate, the need for staff
Are you
at
going to use
100%.
AI? Because that's all you have to do for your
Yeah,
stock price.
I
Just
don't,
say
yeah.
AI,
I don't
and
even like saying AI anymore, but yes, it involves AI.
all right.
So there is a little bit of a difference, but look, if you're running a depot facility, you're charging a lot more than you're charging for managed truck parking. So
That's right. Yeah, and to that point, higher traffic, more wear and tear necessary if you're a gravel facility or an aggregate, versus higher quality fencing. Or you may get tenants, and I've had this too, where there are very specific logistics tenants that have brand standards, and so for a single tenant type user, you may rip out all of your existing fencing, replace all of your lighting to their standards and coverage requirements, and the security. But the juice is worth the squeeze. But again, you don't know what the market's going to come until, hey, this tenant comes with a RFP, and you're like, oh, I will do all that stuff in order to get that type of lease. Awesome. So I guess my next question is back to, let's talk about the location, because I do think, again, potential investors don't know how to evaluate this. And I get this question every single week, 2 times a week. How far away from the highway can I be? I, Let me tell you my answer, and I want you guys to tear me a new one, because this is just my thing. It's not about distance. It's certainly not as the crow flies. That's a useless metric, but it's easy for people. And drive time is also misleading because just because some yard is 7 minutes off the interstate, off of an exit, it's deceiving if it's too many turns. And what I mean is like you got it. You hang a left on this, or you turn right here, and then you turn another right, and then the yard will be on your left. People will see that on a map, and on Google Maps it looks like a zigzag, it looks like a puzzle, and I'm not going to mess with that. Even if the pictures are great, the reviews, it just makes the drivers feel like it's easier to get lost. There might be more pinch spots that the trailer could get high centered, or crossing over, whatever, versus I could be 10 minutes, I could be 15 minutes off the freeway. But if you say exit the interstate, turn right, we're directly on your right side, 8 miles or 6 miles down the road. Ease of access and drive time is the proxy. And maybe I'll put a 10-minute limit on that, 7-minute limit or something, drive time. And you could be a mile, you could be 2 miles away, or you could be six if it's a straight shot. So what do you think of that analysis of where do you want to be?
I think your answer is solid, right? Ease of access is super important. Like if you use, I don't know how many of, the listeners here would have ever like towed a boat or towed a trailer or something like that. Like if you're towing one of those things, you're constantly checking, like, am I going to, with a boat specifically, like what's the bridge clearance? Like some of these boats with a radar on top can get pretty high, right? Outriggers or antennas and things like that. If you're towing a trailer, like for me, if I'm towing a trailer, even if it's a little utility trailer and you got an ATV on it or something, and you need to get gas, you're picking the gas station that's on the side of the road that you're going to, and ideally one that has a light that you can make, a left out of or whatever. So that's very important. But I'll go back to my comment of you got to go where the market is pulling you, right? So if you already own that site, you're going to open regardless, right? So
Okay.
put the surface down, put the fence down, and see where the market takes you. Now, if you're starting a new business and you're saying, hey, I want to optimize my business for over the road nightly parking, then you really got to think about, okay, where is this going to be located relative to, a high traffic exit? If you look at what you're competing with, if you're opening that type of business, it's the pilots, the loves, the TAs, right? All those guys are on the exit. Like you pull off the exit, it is right there. It's either on, one side or the other side of the highway. So that would kind of be a different equation, but your answer is good. There's no set, metric. It's kind of a case by case thing.
Well, we need some conflict because it can't just be passionate. Jose, I want you to disagree
No,
with me.
I was going to add. There's everyone wants the formula, but it's you have to do the work. You have to go find if whatever market you're in. You have to get in your car, and these yards are hard to find. You may think that there's no competition, but if you get in the car, you start following the drivers and looking at where they're parking, you're going to realize there's a handful of them across the spectrum, guys with asphalt, well lit, like we were mentioning, the whole thing, down to a yard that just has some writing that says truck parking in Spanish with a phone number, and that may also be full. But next thing you know, there's a few others that aren't so full, and you may realize that maybe this area is well supplied, right? So you just have to do the work, and it's very hard to do, and I guess that's just what it takes. You got to get in the car and go find them.
Well, I
One
think that's great
more.
advice. That makes sense. Drive. I want to ask Jose about this though. A, a little bit of the hand painted sign that's got like a 6x9 little sign that they have in the yard. How many of the drivers are going away from those parking solutions because they don't have some of the technology or tax forms, or some of these carriers are paying, reimbursing for parking now. Are they going to reimburse Jose's truck yard with a little handwritten receipt? And if they even give you a receipt at all, it's cash when you pull into the yard and they say, yep, leave tomorrow, versus prime truck parking where you've got an online W-9 and submit your ACH payment. How much is the industry moving towards my yards versus Jose's, 2 men in a gate?
In general, the industry is moving towards more professional facilities for sure. The guys that are parking in the, hidden yard with the stenciled sign in the front, I'd venture to say they probably aren't asking for reimbursement. That might be, a local driver that's just parking his equipment for shorter routes. Um, but going back to the comment about the little sign in the hidden yard, right? Like, I'd encourage anyone that's looking at this business to understand that, yes, while Pilot and Loves and TA and, some bigger sort of mom and regional mom and pop style truck parking operators exist, there are a ton of
Mhm.
those types of facilities everywhere we go, right? So that's like, a lot of guys ask us, like, am I too late? Has the ship kind of sailed on outdoor storage and truck parking? And I don't think so. I think it's still very early, and there's a ton of opportunity if you're willing to look, right? If you want to sit on a screen and Google truck parking to try to find locations to open, it's, there's a zillion other people doing that. But if you get in your car, right, and drive around, or just scan on satellite images for things that look like truck parking, you find them that way.
Awesome. No, I think that's great advice. I have a video about sitting behind the screen to do the Google, but I try to say that's only step one. Just doing the Google Pass can get you a lot of information, but not all of it. And I think those operators are the best ones to buy from, right? You take the little stencil sign and you put money into it with the knowledge that we have, and then the software solutions that you guys have, and suddenly you've got a real operation going, and you've converted the informal parking lot into a professional truck parking that now is on Google, now that does take credit cards and that sort of thing. And that's to me where the biggest opportunity is, to take these known locations that are inefficiently run and put some investment in, and juice them up into great facilities that ultimately help more drivers, right? You want to open the pool and provide more supply, because I get a lot of hate comments on my YouTube channel that, but it's from drivers, right? Saying you guys are gouging us and parking should be free and whatever. But there's a very strong problem, right? They acknowledge the problem. They don't think paid parking is the solution, but they don't really suggest a better one. They just kind of think it should be free if I'm buying gas anywhere in the country, that I should get to park in, Fort Worth, Texas for free. So
I've got my own opinions on that, but I won't create too combative of a podcast. But look, it's got to be either the government's going to do it and it's free and it'll be ready in 2075 and we'll all be dead, or the private market's going to solve it and they're going to charge for parking.
right, right. Well, talking about ownership, what do your owners look like in terms of on-site? This is not your typical triple net industrial single tenant lease or even a multi-tenant thing. Um, how often do your people go on site? Are they remote? I mean, are they just living in California, and they have yards in Atlanta? Or tell me about that.
No one's on site every day that uses Rig HUD. There's varying degrees of touch, right? Like, some guys will have us handle, their receivables servicing or inbound customer support tickets as a separate, additional service to the software. Those guys are super low touch. Like, I could name two that don't even live in the same state of the facilities that they operate. And then we've got, some local guys that, for example, take Jacksonville, local operator there, longtime customer of ours, just he lives there. So he goes by, if I had to guess, I mean, he's there at least once a week, just to, have a presence in the facility and check up on what's going on in
But
there.
it's not usually in response to a problem. It's just him cruising by to pick up
Correct.
some trash and
Yeah,
put eyes on the property.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Most guys are, they have other primary jobs, if I'm being honest with you. Aside
Oh,
from,
interesting.
some of our customers that are really at scale, like operating more than 20 yards, they've got other businesses, or they've got day jobs a lot of the time. We've got one guy that's a physician.
And he
He's
owns
on,
20 yards.
not the physician. No.
Oh, okay. Okay. But other
But the
people with a
majority,
day job, with a W 2.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But
Wow.
the majority of guys who do use us do have more than 1 yard. So, and they don't have full scale operation. You know, it's themselves, maybe someone in an office. That office isn't on the yard, and they're not going to be in two places at once. So they're running, a portfolio. I guess you could say, of these industrial parking facilities, and they're doing it, at scale.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, again, I think that's what is attractive about industrial outdoor storage and low coverage industrial too. Is we don't have a lot of the infrastructure, the physical improvements that break down. So we don't have a huge roof. We don't have a sprinkler system. We don't have plumbing. We don't have electrical panels. We don't have the traditional parts of the yard that break down. I mean, obviously the surface is improved. You know, the improved surface is important. You got to maintain that. You got to refresh, fill potholes, but it's nothing like maintaining 16 bathrooms in an industrial building. You can't do that remotely. You do need to put eyes on things. You don't just trust your plumber to be like, "Yep, this the toilet's bad. We got to replace six of them." You're like, "Whoa, I'm getting robbed." So that's what is very unique, I think, about it too. Is if you want to manage a yard remotely, it's really just the dirt, man. I mean, the fence and lighting, sure, I get it. The gate is probably my single most valuable part on there. But even that, half the cost is installation. More than half is
Yeah.
installation. So there's not a lot of physical things. Because funny story, I was talking to a seller who developed a yard, and he had two gates. He had two swing gates, and somebody stole the motors. Um, they were
Really?
brand new LiftMaster units, but they straight up cut. It was because it was bolted or welded to a plate, and then they had them in the ground. But they cut with an angle grinder the metal posts and just lifted up the units, threw them in the back of a pickup truck, and it was wild.
Haven't heard that one before. That's
I
terrible.
mean, it was before opening, and again, it was South Dallas,
Ah,
so
got it.
definitely can happen. But all right. So what other, I guess, predictions do you have for this market? I mean, I know you guys have invested a ton of time and money into this. What do you see as the future, either as an exit, or if you're an investor and you're not happy with multifamily and industrial is really expensive, this is a way to generate yield. But what do you see for the future?
From a real estate owner and operator perspective, again, I still think it's super early. We're, aside from rates going up into the right in most major freight markets, right, which are land constrained by definition, there's quite a bit of M&A activity going on in managed parking. So some of the larger guys are starting to buy up the smaller guys. We've seen some enterprise grade, parking operators express interest in further investing, right? So maybe it's
You mean
a
like, sorry,
Travis.
but you mean like
Yeah.
passenger car parking, right? Who brought parking spots? Somebody bought, was it like,
No,
like,
so that's passenger car parking. Yes, they just did some ginormous deal. I
yeah.
think that was like a year ago. That's
But you're
big.
talking
But no,
about
I'm talking
truck
about, yeah, I'm talking
equipment
about
parking?
truck parking. So like
Okay.
there's no one specific that I'll name, but you'll have, a guy with 2 yards in wherever, Milwaukee, and a larger operator in Milwaukee might approach him, or maybe it's an operator from Florida that's looking to build a presence in Milwaukee but doesn't want to build out a facility from scratch. They're starting to make offers, and we're seeing yards trade, like yards on our platform. Someone will give us notice, be like, hey, someone bought my facility, and it's not only the real estate; they're buying at the opco level. So there's interest in parking, as an operating business, notwithstanding the benefits of actually owning the real estate. So again, I think it's super early. We don't really see institutional capital entering managed parking yet, but there's some big checks being thrown around. And so I think it's super early. I think there's a lot of opportunity for anyone in the space, especially if you can get to, a cluster of facilities that would be of interest to a new investor trying to, get to scale without the headaches of going from 0 to 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it on the head. It's really just you got to be land constrained.
Yeah.
I don't think that if you're 15 minutes outside of Houston, I mean, Houston's big, but if you're far away, there's not the impetus for investors to want to buy that asset. Because at the end of the day, it is real estate. They like the opco, and I think, but the demand for the location drives the value of the opco demand, and that's what people are really looking for. So you got to buy high quality real estate.
They
Interesting.
got to see growth, right? So like anything else, you're looking at cash flow and then you're looking at growth potential and how you're going to mitigate your downside.
Yeah, because
I
it's
think
interesting too. Like some of the net lease operators that do truck parking, they just can't compete on rate though with other tenants. And I feel like that's something maybe if the market can move up a little bit more compared to traditional industrial outdoor storage tenants, just the lay down yard, the pipe fitter, whatever, the roofer, if their rents can get on parity or just slightly below, that will stabilize more and create much more demand for that parking. But so far, we're not seeing it. I mean, they're just their rates are just way softer than a user. So
I think it'll happen as the we'll call them, the medium sized players get bigger, right? So they'll be able to realize their economies of scale and they'll be able to pay a little bit more in rent. And over time, I think that will match what
okay,
an outdoor storage, traditional user might be able to pay, accepting anomaly cases where there's a guy that just needs to be wherever your site is and he's willing to pay you a lot of money. So I think that'll change over time as well.
yeah, I think it's all great potential. You look at where I'm at. I'm in Dallas, and we can move to where the Atlanta market is. We can move to the maybe not Miami, but we can move towards the Nova DC area. Something that is built out and they have no problem paying $500 a month. Because that's just the choice is to move an hour down the freeway, sit in traffic, or pay $500 a month. That means that every market below that has room to grow, assuming that
Correct.
the land gets eaten up and constrained. I mean, every day too. How often do you think we're losing supply? I mean, new supply is very in short supply.
I mean, all the time. I can't give you like an objective metric, but every time a truck parking facility gets bought by a warehouse developer, it's, simultaneously removing a piece of the supply equation in truck parking. And then once a warehouse is built, it's going to add demand for truck parking. So
Yeah,
again, rates are going to move up.
awesome, awesome. Well, I mean, do you guys have any other parting thoughts, or do you want to mention anything?
I'm good. Hoche, you got anything?
No, we appreciate coming back on here, and let's keep doing it.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks,
again,
Ron.
yeah, thanks guys for coming on. I thought it was really great to get an update on the state of the managed truck parking world. And if you guys have any questions, I'll drop their emails and their website down below. Otherwise, smash that like button, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Don't log